Robert, I don't think this is very funny. Bobby. Who is this?
As you watch the screen, your heart begins to beat faster. There's a fluttering in the pit of your stomach. Your throat is dry. Your palms damp. Suddenly a chill runs down your spine. You clutch the person next to you. You tell yourself, it's only a movie. It's only a movie. But sooner or later, it's time to go home.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
And I'm Ron.
This is our review of Venom, starring Sterling Hayden, Klaus Kinski, Susan George, Lance Holcomb, Cornelia Sharp, Nicole Williamson, and Oliver Reed. Directed by Piers Haggard, released in 1982. Grossed $5.2 million at the box office. Had a small but loyal cult following. And, of course, I have a story as to why we're doing this, but I want to hear from you first, Ron. I know you know who Klaus Kinski is, but any relation to Venom before we reviewed it here?
Not to this movie, no. This was a complete surprise, and I still wonder to this day why we did it, so I'll be glad to get that explanation from you tonight.
Well, I'll see if I can work on that one. That'll take throughout the show, I guess. But I learned about this movie, I guess I was 10 or 11 years old, and one of my scout friends, I think his dad had rented it one weekend when like a bunch of people were over, and he rented it purely off the VHS box. There's a lot of versions of it, but the one I have, and I actually own a VHS of this, has a fist coming through a wall with a pistol and a snake wrapped around it. And
nice.
And I mean, rented it just off of that, and the dude told me, he said, man, this movie's crazy. It's like this hijacking, and then there's like all these terrorists, and then there's this snake, and it's crazy. You know, it's the Black Mama's like the deadliest snake ever, and, you know, so it was like this playground thing, right? Everybody's talking about it. And I was like, holy cow, I've got to see this movie. Well, I never could find it in the local video stores or anything like that. So I think I might have been in college when I finally like bumped into it, and I said, yes, must watch, rented it, fell in love with it. Years later at a flea market, found the VHS again for like $1, bought it, and have owned it for a few years now. And I've probably seen this movie maybe 4 or 5 times, but I always had like this fond memory of it, even though it's not good. Like, it's a B picture all the way. Like, look, this is Shocktober, and as we joked in the Carnosaur show, we might as well have just called this Schlocktober because of the stuff we're doing this month. is really like on the edge of the genre. Like, honestly, it really is. And but I'm excited about this one though, to talk about it, because I was like, you know, this is there's so much here that is just ridiculous, but yet every time I watch this movie, I mean, it's 90 minutes long and it just blows right by. Like, it wastes no time getting you right into it. You've got drunk Sterling Hayden at probably his drunkest, you know, one of his last roles here, stumbling around in this thing. You've got this kid who I'm pretty sure doesn't know what kind of movie he's in. You've got Susan George, you know, I don't know if this is pre or post Simon McCorkindale, but, you know, it's somewhere in there. You've got Oliver Reed, who apparently he and Kinski hated each other so much on set, and it bled over into the script, which you can see. And then I found out this thing was based on a book, and I was like, no way. And I was like, no, you know, this is the kind of cheap dime store novel that a thriller movie like this could be based on. And so I'm excited to get into it and talk about it, because it's a childhood favorite, and that's a dangerous road to go down when you go revisit the childhood favorite in adulthood. Like, does it hold up and under the critical eye? I'll be curious to see, but yeah, I forgive me, but I thought of anybody I could review this with, Ron would be the person that might appreciate it. I knew Nick would hate it and tear it apart, so I said, well, let me try it to Ron and see if he can find anything, worthwhile saving in this. Now, Klaus Kinski's a thing for you, like, right? You like when I said this immediately, you were like, oh yeah, him.
Yeah, I enjoy his brand of off-kilter weirdness. When I was watching this movie with my wife the first time, and I had to go back and watch the second half again just to try to get a handle on what was going on and how. I told my wife, it was like, he's like if you could mash Peter Lorre and Tommy Wiseau up in one of those fly chambers, like Klaus, plus like a Hugo, the evil puppet from Devil Doll, and like that would be Klaus Kinski.
That's an excellent pull, by the way, and I think you're right. He is a mash of things here. I mean, he's got a funky name, Yakmel. It's short for like two different things, but he's supposed to be this, badass terrorist thief. Like the whole thing centers around like taking a rich couple's kidnap. And then the snake is sort of an accidental thing that happens along the way because the pet store screwed up, so I don't know. I really, always related to this because I hate snakes. Like of all of my animal fears in the world, I'm Indiana Jones.
Why did it have to be snakes?
Yes, exactly. Why did it have to be snakes? I'm with you. I can't do it. They're the devil. I can't handle it. No legs. They move. It's just, I can't do it. And so there's something about that but there's something about them that's always intrigued me too, especially this black mamba thing, because, that was the playground myth too, is like, oh, what's the deadliest snake ever? And I don't even know what the answer to that is nowadays anymore. But I remember the mamba used to be on that list, but the mamba was also fast, right? Now I'm also a big NBA fan. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and say now, I don't necessarily approve of his off the court antics, but Kobe Bryant was an amazing player to watch in his heyday, and of course he was called Mamba because of the way he moved. And I was like, yeah, it's this super fast snake. And the thing about the black mambas that I always thought was neat was how freaking big they are. I mean, they're like 6.5 feet. They're thick, and they're named not because of the color of their scales, but because their mouth is totally black on the inside. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. And I just thought there was something cool about a snake that had very small fangs that really wasn't that, imposing of a figure. But if it bit you, you were like dead within minutes.
Yeah, I was never big into snakes. I was never like fascinated by snakes or anything, but like I can definitely see why that would be like the most interesting snake. I mean, we both grew up in the South, so like we're familiar with like, copperheads and rattlesnakes and stuff like that, but not like nothing quite on the level of the black mamba, at least as far as the movie Venom is concerned, because they are selling this thing as like the meth head of snakes.
Well, the snake, and that's the amazing thing. I think the first credit in the end credits is thank you to the snake handler, because otherwise this movie would have been garbage. That's pretty much what it says. And it
does look like a real, like it does look like a lot of shots of a real snake, which is pretty great.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing is I expected, and my memory had told me there's a lot of puppet in this. There's really, the end scene is probably the most famous version of it. We'll get to that. But the rest of the time, it's the mamba. It's a real mamba and the mamba wrangler getting it to act, which is, I don't know how one acquires that skill or learns how to do that, getting a mamba to method act, but it does. And, this thing is pretty, it knows what its cue is. It looks at the camera several times. It even has a startled look on its face all the time. I think it's the other thing about it, too, that because like other snakes, like you mentioned copperheads and rattlesnakes and stuff, like they have those slanted eyes and like they look like, like pissed off, right? The black mamba looks like utterly surprised that you're looking at it. So it's almost like a Muppet.
It's definitely the most confused looking snake, and I wasn't sure if that was just how they always looked, or if that was its response to being like prodded off screen by some guy with a stick.
I wonder that too, and what I've seen of them on Discovery Channel and stuff, they don't really, focus on them that much. So I don't know. But I guess before we get into this, because I have a feeling a lot of people haven't seen this one. So Ron, give us a summary of Venom, if you would.
Sure will. An international criminal named Jacques Mel, played by Klaus Kinski at his most coked up, plans to kidnap and ransom a wealthy couple's precocious child, along with the family maid, Susan George, and driver Oliver Reed. However, when the boy's adventurous grandfather, Sterling Hayden, lets him go out on his own to buy another pet for his collection, things take a turn for the strange as the boy accidentally picks up a deadly black mamba which was slated to go to a toxicology lab. The snake attacks and kills the maid. Then the driver shoots a policeman who stops by the house to warn the family about the deadly animal mix-up. As the standoff intensifies and becomes full-on Day of the Jackal, the police break in where the driver is shot, but the snake kills both the officer and the wounded villain trapped in the basement. I don't remember the snake killing that officer. We'll get there. The snake finally squares off with Jacques Mel, and while coiled around his arm, the two crash through a window as police snipers fire, killing both the criminal and the snake.
Yeah, and I will say, correction, too. I think Jacques Mel actually gets a shot off to kill the snake finally, but they both get hit several times. Yeah,
Jacques Mel makes the snake's head explode.
Yeah, Day of the Jacques Mel. I think it's a good way to another subtitle for this. And let's just get into the characters real quick. Let's talk about Jacques Mel. You described it. The most coked up, most weird, Tommy Wiseau-esque Klaus Kinski here. Like, I'm trying to understand exactly what's going on. So the first scene is the mother's picking up the boy from school, and she's talking about, now be good while I go visit your father who's, working out of town so that we can romp around and not have you to bother us and leave you with my drunk, father to watch over you. It's all just sort of we're going to, pawn the kid off, and the kid's only friends appear to be all this menagerie he's got at home.
Yeah, he's like the obnoxious little kid from the MST3K classic Night of the Blood Beast, where the kid finds this little space alien, but he has this whole menagerie of weird critters living in a cabin somewhere. This is one of those kids who seems to only exist in movies. I mean, some kids have, rats or hamsters or even like snakes or spiders, but I don't know anyone who has like an entire room full of creatures that seem designed mostly to set off his deadly asthma attacks.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like he can barely breathe, but yet he's around all of these animals that molt continually. There's a parrot, there's a hamster, there's a gerbil. But he doesn't have any insects that we can see, and he doesn't have any reptiles. So this snake is like a big deal. And I'm going to ask you, because I've never caught it and it may not be there. Is there something in there where he drops a line about wanting a snake? Because he's supposed to pick up like a house snake, which is just like a tame little, nothing snake. And it gets confused with the mamba because the pet store owner's sick that day. I don't remember that. But like, does he drop a line about wanting a snake and Grandpa's like, yeah, go for it, boy?
I don't think so. I think he's got this snake waiting for him, and he's just waiting to pick it up for when Mom leaves the house.
So I guess like they were aware of it anyway, which is the funny part of it. But yeah, you have this kid, and I didn't get what the mother did, because this is all in London, I think, right? That's what we're led to believe.
Yes, it is in London, and Mom is the wife of a famous hotel magnate.
So she's like a Hilton wife then, right? Or something like that. Maybe not Hilton, but something along those lines. That's what she's supposed to be. But she's some sort of government official, too, because like she has some official title, because she talks about working all the time, and Sterling Hayden gets onto her about working all the time.
I think she is the wife of Howard Johnson of Howard Johnson's hotel chain fame.
Maybe that was it.
And she does have some sort of government job, but it's kind of a nebulous government job.
Exactly, right. We don't understand it. We don't need to, right? And what is Sterling Hayden? Is he supposed to be like King Solomon's Mines, Alan Quatermain retired as a grandfather? Isn't that kind of what he's supposed to be? Because they lure him out of the house on this idea of him being like a safari hunter, but he ends up thwarting their plan anyway.
Yeah, he is a retired or quasi-retired big game hunter type. I always imagined him with the beard and the blood alcohol level as being an Ernest Hemingway type.
That could work too. He is
Yeah,
Hemingway-esque in this, except that he actually cares about his family. There's the difference. So because Hemingway hated him.
They are both like constantly sweating gin.
Yes, this is true. But he cares about this kid. And can we talk about the relatively low body count in the animal film here too? I was like waiting for him to die because that's going to be the dramatic turn, is that Grandpa gets it fighting the evil snake. Nope, he lives. He's fine. Like the only people that die are the bad people and the one cop.
Yeah, one cop and Oliver Reed and Susan George, who dies hilariously.
Like Susan George has enough time to like fuss over the kid a little bit, strip tease, take off her underwear, hand him to Oliver Reed, and then get bitten by the snake and die. That's as long as she's in this movie.
Yeah, and my question is, what kind of family would employ Oliver Reed in any capacity?
As a driver, no less.
As a drunk driver, maybe.
This man has no business behind the wheel of a car.
I don't see how this guy can even has a license after that many DUIs. I know things were different back in the day, but this is 1981. Mothers Against Drunk Driving is a thing.
But it's in London, so maybe it didn't make it over the pond. Maybe that's how. Maybe that's why he is there, because he can't get work in America. I don't know. Like, I didn't understand exactly what. I get the plot. We're going to kidnap the kid and we're going to get money out of it somehow. Like, that was the thing. But why is this international terrorist involved? It would be like the guy from Invasion USA doing kidnap jobs to build up money for his arsenal.
Speaking of people who are on a lot of cocaine.
True. I will admit now, as a kid, I thought those were the same actor. I didn't realize. We have Dave. I love that the driver's name is just Dave. Oliver Reed as Dave. It's what it says on the VHS box I have. And Louise, who are trying to keep young Philip down. And do you remember the kid's story about the mongoose that fights the cobras?
Not really.
There's a kid's story where, like, somebody tell us, like, what the name of it is. There's a kid's story about this mongoose that fights these two cobras. Anyway, the kid in that story reminded me so much of this kid, and maybe it's just the snake connection or whatever, but it was like this little blonde British child. And, it would be like if one of the Harry Potter kids had a pet snake all of a sudden, and it was a black mamba accidentally. I do love how when he gets home from the store or whatever, he decides to let the maid, who's constantly riding him about something, and clearly, has the ulterior motives, lets her open the box so that the snake can pop its head out and be like, "Who the hell are you?" and bite her on the face 3 times.
It was almost like she'd opened up a can of those coil snakes, the spring snakes.
Yes.
Either that or someone with an arm through that box hurled a rubber snake at her face.
Well, I love that the camera goes to like snake POV, right?
Yes, snake cam was one of my favorite recurring elements in the movie.
Yeah, we got a lot of snake-o vision in this movie. And, though, I'm thinking about, like, this is just a few years after Jaws. It's all the animal killer movies have come out at this point. They all did this, right? It's also the post-Halloween and Peeping Tom world where we show the POV of the killer, post-Black Christmas as well.
Yeah, that's one thing I was surprised is we didn't get any shots of like the snake looking through things. We didn't get a ton of shots of like the snake like with a beady eye pressed against the keyhole or something, and I felt like that was what the movie was missing.
I don't know that this snake had any motives, though. It doesn't know what it was supposed to be there for. Like, it gets mixed up at the pet store because it's supposed to go to this toxicology lab, so obviously they can study its antivenom and, the effects of its toxin and all this stuff. And so it's like it's been misplaced for its job, so it doesn't know what to do. And it's just hanging around. It's stuck in the airport. So where am I? So, it gets in the ventilation shaft. And that's when they're one of their great plans is, why don't you turn the heat on? You might lure it to sleep. And all that does is just piss it off. Like, no, don't turn the heat up. So.
Yeah. And then when they kidnap the toxicologist, she's like, well, you guys should have just turned the heat on. Maybe it would go into a coma, which is the opposite of, I think, what they were doing. Because they make a point very early in the movie to say that this house is like incredibly hot inside.
Right. So it wouldn't matter.
Something to do with the kid's asthma.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because you'd want to keep a warm environment. You don't want the cold to sneak in on somebody that's got breathing problems.
I mean, I grew up with asthma, and I don't particularly remember the heat being all that good for me. Maybe it's different in England. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it is that English humidity. I don't know either. But I think that's just the excuse that they have to keep everybody inside. But no one is ever, like, the only one that's profusely sweating all the time, besides Sterling Hayden, who's sweating gin, is Oliver Reed, who just seems like he's ready to kill somebody.
Yeah, you could definitely tell that he and Klaus Kinski don't get along. And Oliver Reed just looks furious the entire movie. And I'm not sure if it's because he's like stuffed into an extremely like binding girdle, or if like he's going through DTs, or if he just hates Klaus Kinski that much, which really, those two definitely seem like a couple of people who wouldn't get along at all.
Oh yeah, according to the director, they didn't get along to the point that like it started to infuse the performance. And we should say Pierce Haggard was not the original director of this. I don't know if you saw this note or not. Toby Hooper was supposed to do this, and he basically had a nervous breakdown trying to work with all these people on the set and just walked away.
I mean, this is not an easy set of people to work with in any way, shape, or form, because you've got the notoriously crazy Klaus Kinski, you've got the notoriously drunk Sterling Hayden, you've got the up-and-coming notorious drunk Oliver Reed, and then you've got a legitimate snake.
No, you've got, on top of it, like you said, the deadly snake is also a part of this entire scenario. So I do kind of think, though, the fact that they don't get along, that they don't like each other, works for the performance, because you get that Dave is just like hired muscle, but he thinks he's like supposed to be more important anyway. And it really pisses him off that Jacmel keeps, tossing him to the side the way he does. But what Jacmel, though, he's got like no BS filter at all with people. Like, the cop they have a cop show up at the door to try to tell him, hey, there's a poisonous snake in your house. Sorry about that. And all Dave can think to do is just blow the dude away from the door, right? So we've already escalated the issue. And Jacmel just totally demeaned the next guy, who's like the police commander. He says, I need someone with authority. You bring me authority back, which that's very Tommy Wiseau-like.
Yeah, that's
hi, Mark. Are you the authority on the Black Mamba?
Yeah, that's, I don't understand what higher authority there is than the guy in charge of the hostage situation.
Well, man, I love that his demands are like, I want a car and a plane and $1 million and all this. And I'm like, dude, you just shot a police officer. The only reason we haven't blown your house down is we think the kid's still alive.
Right. And then I did enjoy the gambit where they sent out the maid's severed finger.
Where they've got the toxicologist doctor in there, who I think was in When a Stranger Calls, by the way, but playing a psychiatrist. But they send out the severed finger to like, this is how we know you mean business. But then somebody looks at it and says, no, this is a dead finger. So they've cut off poor Susan George's finger, who we should say is not only like sleeping with Dave, but she's also screwing Jacmel.
Yeah, and I think that was another thing why they didn't get along. I mean, at least another reason for them to not get along in the movie was that she was screwing both of them. I assume that's not what was happening in real life.
Yeah, I'm assuming that was an on-set issue only in the story. But yeah, that would be another reason for these two not to like each other.
It almost seems like it's something they added in after the fact to explain the seething hatred between our two supposed conspirators.
That's a good point, and I don't have anything to prove otherwise of that, but because I haven't read the book and I don't think I ever will. But that would make sense if that's a directorial choice. I mean, Haggard will tell you, like, this was a miserable experience, and the fact that they got what they got out of it is amazing to him. Like, he doesn't know how they got the movie they got. Probably because of the Snake Wrangler.
Honestly, that end credit where they're like, if it wasn't for the Snake Wrangler, we wouldn't have a movie. It's the most honest thing in the film.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a good bit about the snake and its performance and its kind of confused look the whole time. Heads up to the Snake Wrangler, who made such an impression that, yes, like you say, he got his own credit in the end of this thing, which is David Ball is his name, by the way, which is why they named one of the police people in it after him. But if it weren't for him, this movie wouldn't have been made.
Yeah, I think actually Michael Go was supposed to be playing him.
Yeah, that's right. He's supposed to play somebody Michael Go, Alfred from the Batman series, I think is what most of our folks will know him as, what I knew him as too, comes in with a policeman through like a battering ram through a basement wall to catch the snake. He's supposed to be the Snake Wrangler, so he's playing.
Yes, he's the snake handler, I assume, because the real guy couldn't act well enough, or the real guy was probably busy making sure Oliver Reed didn't kill the snake with alcohol poisoning or something.
Right, or that the snake didn't actually turn on all of them as they had it in so many different scenes. But yeah, that when they do that break in, Michael Go runs away and the policeman gets killed and Oliver Reed gets shot by the cop that is coming in the door. Because the reason I know that cop got killed, you mentioned it in the plot summary there, is the snake goes right for his face and you see him fall backward. So I'm to assume he meets Susan George's demise at that point.
Yeah, that makes sense then.
Oliver Reed gets a terrible death though, right? Because not only is he shot and bleeding to death, but then he's like trying to move up these stairs and he sees this snake around his foot, which proceeds to crawl up his pants leg and then bite him right in the junk.
Yeah, that seems like another directorial choice where they weren't too happy with him and they wanted to give him like the most humiliating death they could manage.
But that's a very intense scene. I will say, for a cheesy B picture, and that's what this is. And I've said that from the outset. That was intense. Like I was squirming in my chair trying to watch that.
Yeah, that's it's definitely a lot more impactful than the similar scene in Snakes on a Plane, and I can't help but feel like whoever did Snakes on a Plane watched a bunch of snake movies prior to and just said, all right, let's do this, but make it funny.
Oh, they played it for laughs there. Here it's played for terror and horror. And this is a good time to bring up the score here. Michael Kamen is a name that everyone from the 80s and 90s will know from movie scores land, right? Like that's a name you know. He's scoring this, and it's like the most overly dramatic, tense music you can come up with. It's exactly what you think of Michael Kamen.
All I really know him from is the S&M Metallica album.
Oh, no, Lethal Weapon, man. Like, you
really?
know that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's part of that. He did that he was known for that kind of sort of fusion rock jazz score, or to do like these big strings and orchestrations. I mean, think about like the opening to Lethal Weapon when it fades out of Jingle Bell Rock into the guitar bit and then into that high tense bit before the chick jumps off the balcony, right? Like this is what he does, is these overly overwrought dramatic scores. And I got a kick out of the score as much as anything else.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the more positive aspects of the movie. One of the things I enjoyed, second only to Snake-O-Vision, was the craziness of the score.
I mean, we do get a lot of the snake crawling around in the ventilation shaft. It looks around. It's looking for stuff to do. Like, the snake works. Like, for animals on a set, they did a pretty good job. I like the snake working and working with the score. I mean, you always knew where the snake was. It had a theme.
Oh, that's true. The haunting snake theme was a lot of fun.
So, okay, I'm praising this thing, but I feel like you've got some stuff that you really want to throw some darts at. So go ahead. You have free reign. What did not work about this for you?
The hatred between Klaus Kinski and Oliver Reed made me slightly uncomfortable while I was watching it because it felt too real. I did doze off in the middle of it the first time I watched it.
Did Ollie make it through?
Yes. She said, "Are you awake?" And I said, "Yes." But then I ended up missing like 5 or 10 minutes of the movie. But I don't. It felt as much as I enjoyed like Snake-O-Vision and the weird shots of the snake, I kind of felt like the snake was an afterthought, or like they had two short movies that they wanted to put together into one film. They've had this like Dog Day Afternoon hostage drama thing, and then on the other hand, you've got the Jaws with a snake aspect.
Well, you've hit on something there. It's not, that's not what happened. I mean, it was a contained story, but it is a mix of things. It's like, what if we had international terrorism and kidnapping drama, and then they got a poisonous snake loose in the room? I mean, it sounds like the kind of conversation that would have happened when the author came up with the story.
And there's also the quasi neglected kid being raised by his grandfather, or at least that's what they seem to establish.
He looks up to him for sure, which, I mean, why wouldn't you? Sterling Hayden is like the man's man in this thing, right? He does whatever the hell he wants, and nobody stops him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Sterling Hayden is... I still think he should have died in this movie. I think it would have raised the stakes more for him to have been bitten.
Yeah. Thematically, like, it would have worked if, like, there was a race to time to, like, try to get... Because we do establish that, like, it takes a little bit for Susan George to die. You know, like, she spends 5-10 minutes before she completely conks out. And she was bitten several times. So maybe if you just had one bite, like, there would be time to save you because the toxicologist is there. Like, they could have played that up. I'm with you.
And she was bitten on the neck, too.
Yeah.
Like the neck and the face. You don't live that long when you get bitten by the neck on anything.
Or when you're bitten in the genitalia area, apparently, either, because that would be main blood flow, I suppose.
Well, yeah, and Oliver Reed had also been shot, so...
True, so it wasn't like that was helping him. You're right. So
yeah, the snake was the least of his problems, because it looked like where he was shot would have probably nicked the lung.
Yeah, he wasn't getting out of that. Like, he was going to need immediate medical attention. There was no surviving that. I agree.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like all the parts... Like, if they had picked a couple of things and focused on something a little bit more, or had a less hilarious death for Klaus Kinski, I think it might have worked. I wanted to see the grandfather in peril, or... Even better, I wanted to see the kid get bitten.
Well, see, that would have also raised the tension as well. I mean, we should talk about what happens here is everybody kind of bands together, and the grandpa's the one that knows that it's a mamba who did the bite because he sees Susan George, and he's like, oh, I've seen that before. That ain't going to work, and so he's the safari hunter, and he kills like a lamp cord or something with a shovel, and, we think it's the snake, but no, here comes the snake after him again, and it is this hilarious thing where the snake ends up going after Klaus Kinski because it is like the snake decides Klaus is next and just takes him out when it finally comes through the wall at him and bites him on the back of the head.
Yeah, it's weirdly focused on him, and I'm not 100% sure why, aside from plot convenience.
There's nothing that should have said that he was the guy that should have, the snake fixated on like that.
I mean, unless snakes are attracted to drugs somehow.
Now, we can't actually prove that was happening. It just looks like it. So, but you're right.
Yeah,
if it's a duck and quacks, it probably is.
The casual libel hour is now over.
Yeah,
except he's long dead.
I'm gonna
so
say
I
he's
think
dead,
okay.
and I don't think his estate's gonna come after you for trashing him for Venom. I don't think he's known for. Is that just on his IMDb page? Known for Venom? I would doubt it. So probably not what he goes down most remembered for here. But let's talk about that crazy ending though, because it is insane. Like what happens? Like you got the police surrounding everything. That we've gone back and forth. That you said you fell asleep when you went back and watched it again. Did you realize that you didn't miss anything? Because you could snooze through about 25 minutes of this and wake up and be like, "Where are we? Oh, okay. Grandpa's got a shovel. We're good." Like you really once Oliver Reed dies, there's nothing else you need to know to the very end.
Well, and what I slipped through was a lot of Sterling Hayden roaming the house looking for the snake.
Okay.
And I think that's part of the reason why I fell asleep was that I was kind of bored by it, because I never thought for a minute that Grandpa was going to get bitten.
Right, which makes sense. Like, why there's because we've already established that he's indestructible at this point. Like, there's been too many close calls, and they haven't pulled the trigger on it, so they're not going to do that now. And as we've said, they're not going to go there. So it's just him skulking around the house, and then the snake, like we said, decides to pop out of the ceiling and bite Klaus Kinski on the back of the head, and then like it becomes entangled around his arm and something while he's waving that gun around, And I'm like, somebody's going to get shot by accident as he tries to shoot this snake before he falls out the balcony to be open for sniper fire.
Yeah, I kind of expected that too, because he really is flailing a lot, and I don't know if that's because he's trying to make the rubber snake look alive, or if they didn't tell him it was a rubber snake and he thought it was a real snake.
That would have been funny, right? Like if they didn't tell him, like, hey man, this is just gonna be the fake one, and he starts wigging out like that. That would have been awesome.
Although I'm sure that he would have found a reason to wig out either way, because that's kind of the acting choices that he's known for.
I was gonna say that is his thing, right? That's his, as our friends over on How Did This Get Made would say, that's his actor's secret. Like,
yes, his actor's secret is that he's kind of crazy and
he's on coke, and he just got bitten by a poisonous snake. So,
yeah.
So that combination of things is not working well for his mental state.
Yeah, for all we know, he brought that gun from home.
Probably so. Could have been. So, but we did get that great end though, where he's trying to do, like, he realizes the gig is up, the cops are gonna gun him down, but by God, he's gonna shoot that friggin' snake. Like he is like trying to steady himself just so he can get one straight shot at that snake's face, and he finally does.
Yeah, that is a pretty cool shot though, I will say, because they did pack a tiny rubber snake head with dynamite and make it pop. That was fun.
Yeah, and then like they fall to the ground or to the next level together and just sort of splat, on the landing there, and that's it. That's how the whole thing goes down.
After he gets shot like 18 times.
Oh yeah, I mean the cops unload on him. It's quarter taken. So
yeah, it's a real Bonnie and Clyde situation.
That's a movie I didn't think we were going to reference tonight, but yeah. So
well, I could have said it's a real Devil's Reject situation.
It's also that, yeah.
It wouldn't have surprised me a bit if Rob Zombie wasn't also a huge fan of Venom.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. So how big of a fan are you? I guess we're at the part where it's time to do final thoughts and popcorn ratings on Venom. So Ron, lay it on us.
I've been going over this one in my head since I watched it the second time. I get why it would be like I get why it's memorable to you. I get why it was a thing that was discussed on the playground. It makes a lot of sense that you've got this mishmash of everything popular in the early 80s all kind of crammed together in the same flick. But it never quite works for me for the many of the reasons that we've discussed. The animosity is kind of weird. It gives it a weird feeling. Klaus Kinski just in general is unsettling to watch. I do appreciate Snakeovision, and I do appreciate the fact that it's a real snake, and they are committed to getting the most they can out of that snake, but it feels like there's a lot of people who don't serve like, you could kill Sterling Hayden, you could kill Sarah Miles, the
doctor,
the doctor of snakeology or whatever her degree's in. you could kill a lot of those people off to raise these stakes, and it just feels like they want to split the difference between a creature feature and a locked room drama, crime drama kind of thing. So I'm going to go with a medium popcorn. There's a lot of fun, crazy elements. There's a lot of interesting things to look at sometimes, but it's not nearly enough to kind of justify the flick for me. I think it's the kind of thing you could put on in the background at like a Halloween party, and then everybody just looks up when someone starts screaming or guns start being shot or whatever, and I think you'd be fine.
I don't know what kind of Halloween parties you go to, but holy cow.
One's full of poisonous snakes, obviously.
I'll say this. I agree with you on the rating. I'm with you. It's medium popcorn territory all the way, but this is enjoyable. Like, again, there's 20 minutes of it where you can just check out and ignore it. But I think that's part of the charm of this movie is how ridiculous it is. Like, it is a childhood favorite, but I think there's just something fun about how preposterous all of this comes off. And I have a blast with it. And so I'm medium popcorn on it as well. But I do think it's one of those that's sort of forgotten. It's hidden back there in the back of the genre. But you got to find it, folks. It's on Prime right now, I think. And you may see it stream on Shudder or something sometime. But I say give it a spin. Definitely watch it. But watch it with a group of people. I do think it's more fun if you've got a bunch of people there, especially people that will appreciate the type of film it is or what it's trying to be. And then, again, you can sort of zone out for, while Grandpa's skulking around the house for a bit. But that finale is fantastic. So
I think that this movie would be perfect for a rediscovery by, like, Riff Tracks.
Oh, that would be great. You know those guys. Can you pitch it to them?
I don't know those guys just because I've, like, met them before. I'd love to, honestly, because I think this would be hilarious because the first half an hour, I had a blast just making fun of the movie and throwing out random lines to make myself laugh.
Yeah.
And this is the perfect kind of movie for that. So I think you're onto something with your watch it with friends, get a pizza and yell stupid comments at the screen.
Yeah, I definitely think it's one that you can enjoy with a group of people. But it's been an interesting entry into our Shocktober here, so we're having a little fun with this. We're trying to do variety this year on the film strip Shocktober, and we've done series and all that kind of stuff, and those are great, right? Like we have a lot of fun with those. But this year we thought, let's break out of the mold. Let's do something a little different. We'll throw some different things at people. So we did Carnosaur, which that's a definitely fun genre pick that you picked out, and you and I kicked it all off with a Lifetime movie, which is horrific and crazy about sleepwalking and sexomnia and stuff like that. And now we've done this, and how are we going to end it? I mean, Ron, how can we end Shocktober with a bang?
Well, that's interesting because we have had our previous special guest from Generation Y, was he the beginning of our Shocktober month?
It was late September, so technically it was pre-Shocktober.
It was part of our Shocktober warm-up, and we're sliding right into the next entry in our Shocktober month of random genre picks with another special guest. And we are going to be covering the Devil's Rejects, the Rob Zombie classic, speaking of your Halloween series.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to be picking up another Rob Zombie film, Devil's Rejects, like he said, with the other host of the Generation Y, Aaron's going to come on with us this time. And I'm really excited about that, to see what all you two come up with in that review, because I have a strange relationship with that movie, and I'm real curious to go back and revisit it. But it's a fun way to end Shocktober for us this year. And then, Ron, you and I are we're gonna pick up the swords. We're gonna pick up the stars, the sai. We're gonna do some ninja love here. We're doing 3 ninja films in November because why not have Ninja November?
Yes, it's the perfect way to kickstart your Thanksgiving by carving up some people like turkeys.
Exactly, right? So we got 3 films here that I'm not sure they're actually related to one another, but we're going to say they are. Enter the Ninja, Return of the Ninja, and Ninja 3, The Domination.
Yes, the the classic, much requested by me, Ninja 3 The Domination, is finally coming to Film Strip.
Yeah, we're going to get that one out here on Film Strip. And then, of course, December, we've got the big Star Wars one coming up, but there may be something else. I'm also going to go ahead and let you know, folks, there's going to be one more entry in the Stanley Kubrick retrospective this year, at least one more. Kurt and I finally reviewed the very controversial Lolita, so we'll try to put that out. That's another one. That's a great movie right around Thanksgiving time. Let's talk about pedophilia as a rom-com. So I mean, why not?
But are you going to follow it up with the Jeremy Irons?
No, we are not. I do talk about that one and that one, but we have decided to just try to stick to straight Kubrick stuff. The only thing we're going to deviate from that is when we do get around to 2001, we're going to take a side trip and do 2010.
Nice.
Yeah, because I think it needs to be done. Those are so closely tied to one another. It's hard to not do the other one. But the remake of Lolita, I'll go ahead and spoil it now. No, don't unless you just really want to be disturbed. But all kinds of fun to be had here on the podcast. Subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever you get your show. Leave us a review too. Continuous Play Podcast. Film Strip is the name of the show, but of course you can go to continuousplaypodcast.com. You'll find all of our podcast ventures, and we do appreciate your support. Until next time, for Ron, I'm Jay. Thanks for listening to Film Strip.
Thank you for listening to Film Strip. You can find more episodes on our website, continuousplaypodcast.com/movies. Please leave us a positive review on iTunes and link up with us on Facebook. The Film Strip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121.